Sometimes, the worst part about living alone isn't the silence. It's the sounds you can't explain. The creaks in the walls you convince yourself are just the house settling. The footsteps you pretend are from upstairs neighbors, even when you know there's no one there. And when those sounds come from a place you're told is empty, that's when the fear becomes real. It was November 2019 when I moved into the duplex on Archer Street in suburban Illinois. The rent was too good to be true, $850 for a 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. The landlord, a middle-aged man named Rick, seemed eager to fill the space. He mentioned the previous tenant had left suddenly, didn't even take all their belongings. He'd cleaned the place out himself, he said. Fresh paint, new carpet. It looked fine. I didn't think much of it at the time. People leave apartments for all kinds of reasons. Jobs, relationships, money problems. I was just grateful to have a place I could afford. The first few weeks were quiet. I worked from home most days, so I got to know the rhythms of the house quickly. The hum of the refrigerator, the way the front door stuck when it rained, the creak of the stairs when I came home late. Normal sounds, comfortable sounds. But then I started hearing the footsteps. It was always between 2 and 4 a.m. I'd wake up from a dead sleep to the sound of someone pacing below me. Back and forth. Slow, deliberate steps. Rhythmic, like someone walking the length of a small room over and over again. At first, I thought maybe it was pipes or the foundation settling. Old houses make weird noises, right? But pipes don't sound like footsteps, and foundations don't pace. I checked my lease. The basement wasn't included in my rental. According to Rick, it was just storage space he kept locked. I'd never even seen the door open. It was at the back of the hallway, behind the stairs, painted the same color as the walls like it was meant to blend in. I'd walked past it 100 times without thinking about it, until the footsteps started. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. It was 3:17 a.m., and the pacing had been going on for over an hour. I got out of bed, grabbed my phone, and walked down the hallway. The sound was louder near the basement door, clearer. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard it, the unmistakable sound of someone walking on concrete. I called Rick the next morning. He sounded annoyed, like I'd woken him up, which I probably had. He insisted the basement was empty, that no one had access except him, and that I was probably hearing sounds from outside or the pipes. He'd come by and check it out if it made me feel better. He showed up that afternoon, keys jangling in his hand. He unlocked the basement door and flipped on a light. I stood behind him as he descended the narrow wooden stairs. The smell hit me first damp, musty, like old cardboard and mildew. The space was unfinished. Concrete floors, exposed beams, boxes stacked against the walls. See? Rick said, gesturing around. Nothing. But I noticed something he didn't. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't say anything. There were scratches on the inside of the doorframe, fresh ones, long, jagged marks, like someone had been clawing at the wood. The paint was chipped away in thin strips, and I could see the bare wood underneath. "What's that?" I asked, pointing. Rick's face changed. The color drained out of it. He stared at the scratches for a long moment, then turned and walked back upstairs without saying a word. I followed him. He locked the door, tested the handle twice, and then pulled out his phone. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said, changing the locks. He didn't explain. He didn't offer a reason. He just left. The next day, he installed a new deadbolt and gave me explicit instructions not to go near the basement door. He said it was for liability reasons, that the stairs were unstable and he didn't want anyone getting hurt. It didn't make sense, but I didn't push it. The footsteps stopped. For 2 weeks, the house was silent again. I started sleeping through the night. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Then I found the flyer. It was in my mailbox, folded in half, no envelope, a missing persons poster. The photo showed a man in his early 30s, brown hair, tired eyes. His name was Aaron Trenway. He'd been missing since August. Last seen in the area. I recognized him immediately. He looked exactly like the man in the photo Rick had shown me once, casually, when I'd asked about the previous tenant. I went to the neighbor across the street, an older woman who'd lived there for 20 years. I asked her if she remembered Aaron. She nodded slowly. "He was quiet," she said. "Kept to himself. Rick's brother used to stay with him sometimes. Rick's brother. She lowered her voice. He's got problems. Mental health stuff. Rick used to put him up in his properties when he got out of the hospital. No one really knew when he was there. He'd just show up. I felt my stomach drop. Was he ever in the basement? She looked at me for a long time before answering. I don't know, but I heard things. Late at night. Sounds I couldn't explain. I moved out 6 months later. I didn't tell Rick why. I just said I found a place closer to work. He didn't ask questions. He didn't even seem surprised. I drove by the duplex once, a year after I left. There was a new tenant, lights on in the windows, a car in the driveway. I wondered if they heard the footsteps. I wondered if Rick ever told them about the basement. I never found out what happened to Aaron Trenway. The case is still open. No body, no leads. But sometimes, late at night, I still think about those scratches on the doorframe, and I wonder if Aaron ever made it out of that basement, or if he's still down there, pacing back and forth, waiting for someone to open the door. Some doors are locked for a reason, and some sounds are better left unexplained. We like to think we're safe in our own homes, that the walls around us protect us from the outside world. But what happens when the danger isn't outside? What happens when the threat is just one floor above you, moving furniture in the dead of night, standing outside your door when they think you're not looking? I moved into the Riverside Apartments in March 2020, right before everything shut down. It was an old building, 4 stories, thin walls, the kind of place where you could hear your neighbors' conversations if you listened hard enough. But the rent was reasonable, and the location was perfect. I was on the 2nd floor, Unit 2D, right below 3B. I liked the building at first. Everyone was friendly. We'd chat in the hallways, hold the door for each other, complain about the broken elevator together. It felt like a community, except for the woman in 3B. No one knew her name. She'd moved in quietly, sometime in early April. I never saw a moving truck, just noticed one day that the apartment above me wasn't empty anymore. I'd hear her footsteps at all hours, heavy, dragging sounds, like she was moving furniture constantly, scraping across the floor. Thudding. It went on for hours, sometimes all night. I figured she was just settling in. New place, rearranging things. It would stop eventually. It didn't. I saw her a few times in the hallway, always wearing the same oversized brown coat, even in the summer heat. Hood up, head down, never making eye contact. She'd slip past me without a word, keys clutched tight in her hand. I tried to say hello once. She flinched like I'd shouted at her. The dragging sounds got worse. I started wearing earplugs to bed, but I could still feel the vibrations through the ceiling. I complained to the building manager, a guy named Tom who'd worked there for 15 years. He said he'd check on her, but nothing changed. Then she started standing outside my door. The first time, I thought it was a coincidence. I was coming home from the grocery store, arms full of bags, and I saw her through the peephole as I was unlocking the door. She was just standing there in the hallway, facing my apartment. Not knocking, not moving, just standing. I opened the door. She was gone. I told myself I'd imagined it, or that she'd been waiting for someone else. But it happened again 3 days later. I was inside this time, heard footsteps stop outside my door, and looked through the peephole. She was there. Same coat, same posture. She stood there for 20 minutes. I watched the whole time, heart pounding, phone in my hand ready to call someone. Then she just walked away. I started noticing other things, small things. A coffee mug I'd left on my counter was gone, my favorite one, with a chipped handle. I searched everywhere, thought maybe I'd taken it to work and forgotten, but I knew I hadn't. Then my hairbrush disappeared from the bathroom. A photo I kept on my fridge, a Polaroid of me and my sister, vanished. Nothing valuable, nothing anyone would want to steal, just personal things. I started locking my door even when I was home. I checked the peephole obsessively. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside my apartment when I wasn't there. After the 4th time I caught her standing outside my door, I called Tom again. This time, I didn't ask. I demanded he do a wellness check. Something was wrong with her. She was scaring me. He agreed. Said he'd go up with the maintenance guy the next morning. I didn't sleep that night. The dragging sounds were louder than ever. It sounded like she was tearing the place apart. Tom called me at 11 a.m. the next day. His voice was tight, strained. "You need to come up here." I went upstairs. The door to 3B was propped open. Tom and the maintenance guy were standing in the hallway, looking pale. I stepped inside. The apartment was empty, completely bare. No furniture, no belongings, nothing except one wall. The wall facing the hallway was covered floor to ceiling in photographs, hundreds of them, printed on regular paper, taped up in overlapping rows. Photos of me, of the building, of other tenants. Some were taken from across the street, through windows. Some were taken inside apartments. I saw my living room in a dozen shots, my kitchen, my bedroom. There was a photo of me sleeping. I felt my legs give out. Tom caught me. The police came. They searched the apartment, dusted for prints, took statements. They found no trace of her. No personal items, no identification, nothing. The lease had been signed under the name Sarah Vance, but when they ran it, no one by that name existed. The credit check, the background check, all fabricated. The landlord couldn't explain it. Said the system flagged nothing. She'd paid rent on time, never caused problems. She'd just appeared. And then she disappeared. I installed 3 new locks on my door, got a security camera for the hallway. I couldn't stay in that apartment anymore, but breaking my lease would have cost me thousands. So I stayed. I just stopped feeling safe. The dragging sounds never came back. But sometimes, late at night, I'd look through the peephole and swear I saw someone standing at the end of the hall. Just standing. Watching. I moved out the day my lease ended. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Sometimes, the people living next to us aren't who they say they are. And sometimes, they're not people we should ever let get close. Fences exist for a reason. They mark boundaries. They give us privacy. They create a line between your world and someone else's. But what happens when that line becomes meaningless? When the person on the other side stops respecting it? When they start crossing it in ways you can't see until it's too late? We bought the house in June 2021. It was our first home, a small 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood outside Portland. The backyard was fenced in, which was perfect because we were planning on getting a dog. The neighbors seemed nice enough. Older couple on one side, hardly ever outside, and on the other side, a man in his mid-60s who lived alone. His name was Dale. He was retired, kept to himself mostly, always working in his garden. He had tomatoes, roses, a little herb bed near the back fence. He waved when we moved in, offered to lend us tools if we needed anything. Seemed harmless. But I noticed pretty quickly that he watched us. Not in an obvious way. He wouldn't stare directly. But whenever we were outside grilling, mowing the lawn, just sitting on the patio, I'd catch him standing at his back window. Not doing anything. Just watching. My wife, Emma, thought I was being paranoid. "He's just a lonely old man," she said. Probably bored. Maybe she was right. I tried to ignore it. Then we started finding things. The first time, it was a dead bird, just lying on our side of the fence, right near the gate. It looked like it had been placed there, not like it had fallen from a tree. Its wings were spread out, arranged almost deliberately. I figured maybe a cat had gotten to it. I threw it away and didn't think much of it. A week later, there were 3 more, all laid out in a row. Same position, wings spread, heads facing the house. "That's weird," Emma said. "Should we call animal control?" I didn't know. It felt off, but I couldn't explain why. Then we found the clothing. A torn t-shirt, tangled in the fence. A sock. A pair of child's shoes, too small to belong to anyone in the neighborhood. None of it was ours. I asked Dale if he'd seen anyone throwing trash into our yard. He shook his head, said he hadn't noticed anything, but he smiled when he said it. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. The final straw was the doll. Emma found it one morning, propped up against the back door. It was old, porcelain face cracked, hair matted. And someone had scratched off its face. Just scraped it away until there was nothing left but smooth, blank ceramic. "This isn't normal," Emma said. Her voice was shaking. "Someone's doing this on purpose." I agreed. I wanted to call the police, but what would I even say? Someone's leaving dead birds and creepy dolls in our yard? It felt ridiculous. So I installed a security camera. Mounted it on the back of the house, facing the yard and the fence. If someone was messing with us, I'd catch them. The footage came 3 nights later. I watched it on my phone, alone in the living room at 2 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. The timestamp read 3:14 a.m. The yard was dark, lit only by the neighbor's back porch light, and there he was, Dale, standing at the fence line, completely still, staring directly at our bedroom window. He stood there for 11 minutes, didn't move, didn't look away, just stood there, hands at his sides, face expressionless. I felt my blood run cold. I checked the previous nights. He was there every single time, same spot, same time, just standing, watching. I showed Emma the footage. She went pale. "We need to confront him," I said. She didn't want to. She wanted to call the police. But I was angry. I was done being scared in my own home. I went over the next morning, knocked on his door. He answered with that same smile. "Morning, neighbor. I know what you've been doing," I said. "I have you on camera, standing at the fence, watching our house. It needs to stop." His smile didn't fade. If anything, it got wider. "I don't know what you're talking about. I have footage." "Then show the police," he shrugged. "I'm just an old man who can't sleep." "Is it illegal to stand in my own yard?" I didn't have an answer. He closed the door. 2 days later, we found the folder. It was tucked under our doormat, a plain manila folder, no label. Inside were printed photographs, dozens of them, photos of us sleeping, taken through our bedroom window, different nights, different angles. Some were close-ups. You could see our faces clearly. The angles were impossible unless he'd been inside our house. We called the police immediately. They came, took the folder, took statements. They got a warrant and searched his property. What they found made me sick. There was a tunnel, partially dug, starting from his basement, leading toward ours. It wasn't finished, but it was deep enough that he'd been working on it for months. The walls were shored up with wood. There were tools down there, a flashlight, a folding chair. He'd been planning to get into our house. They arrested him, charged him with stalking, criminal trespass, a dozen other things, but he made bail within 48 hours, and the judge set a court date 6 months out. We didn't wait. We sold the house 3 weeks later, took a massive loss, and moved across the state. I don't care. I couldn't stay there, couldn't sleep knowing he'd been that close, that he'd been watching us for months and we didn't know. I still check every window before bed. I installed cameras at the new place. I don't wave at neighbors anymore, because I learned that fences don't keep people out, and sometimes the person you should fear most is the one who smiles and offers to lend you tools. Trust is a dangerous thing to give, and once it's broken, you can never get it back. Sleep is supposed to be the safest time, the time when we let our guard down, when we trust that the world will leave us alone for a few hours. But what happens when someone breaks that trust? When they enter your space, stand beside your bed, and watch you while you're at your most vulnerable? I lived in a ground-floor apartment in Denver for 2 years. It was a small, complex, 8 units arranged around a central courtyard. Quiet and affordable. My apartment had a sliding glass door that opened onto a little patio. I liked it because I could leave the door cracked at night for fresh air. The screen was locked. I thought that was enough. I was wrong. It started with a feeling. You know that sensation when you wake up and something feels off, but you can't explain why? Like the air in the room has shifted, or someone just left? I started waking up like that. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., wide awake with my heart pounding, feeling like I wasn't alone. I'd check the locks. Everything was secure. I'd look around the apartment, nothing out of place. I told myself it was just anxiety, stress from work, too much caffeine. I tried to ignore it, but then I noticed the smell. Faint, but distinct. Cologne. Something musky and cheap. It wasn't mine. I didn't wear cologne. And it was only there in the mornings, lingering in my bedroom like someone had been standing close. I thought maybe it was coming from outside, from a neighbor's laundry vent or something, but it was too strong, too localized. It was in my room. Then I saw the footprints. I'd mopped the kitchen floor the night before, and it was still slightly damp when I went to bed. When I woke up, there were muddy footprints leading from the patio door, through the living room, down the hallway to my bedroom. They stopped at the foot of my bed. Then they turned around and went back out the way they came. I called the police. They came, took photos, filed a report. They said it looked like someone had come in through the patio door, which I admitted I'd left unlocked. They told me to keep it locked from now on. That was it. No investigation. No follow-up. I installed a motion sensor camera that night, pointed it at the patio door. If someone came in again, I'd have proof. The camera caught him 3 nights later. I watched the footage on my phone the next morning, hands shaking. The timestamp read 4:07 a.m. The patio door slid open slowly, carefully. A man stepped inside. He was tall, average build, wearing a hoodie. He walked through the living room like he knew exactly where he was going. No hesitation. He went straight to my bedroom, and then he just stood there. For 11 minutes, he stood at the foot of my bed, hands in his pockets, staring down at me. I was asleep the entire time. I didn't move, didn't wake up. He just watched. Then, he turned and left. Closed the patio door behind him, like he'd never been there. I checked the next 2 nights. He came back both times. Same routine, same spot, just standing there, watching. I recognized him on the 3rd video. He lived across the courtyard, Unit 6. I'd seen him before, watering plants on his balcony, checking his mail. We'd never spoken, but I knew his face. His name was Eric. I went to the apartment manager with the footage. She was horrified. She called the police immediately. They arrested him that afternoon. I gave them the videos, the timestamps, everything. When they questioned him, he said he didn't remember, that he'd been sleepwalking, that he had a diagnosed parasomnia disorder and sometimes wandered at night without realizing it. His lawyer backed him up with medical records. The police couldn't prove intent. He never touched me, never took anything, never hurt me. Legally, it was trespassing, maybe breaking and entering, but his defense claimed he wasn't in control of his actions. The judge ordered him to install locks on his own doors, attend mandatory therapy, and stay away from me. That was it. No jail time. No restraining order that meant anything. I moved out 2 weeks later, broke my lease and paid the penalty. I didn't care. I couldn't stay there. Couldn't sleep knowing he'd been standing over me, watching me breathe, watching me dream. I thought that was the end of it. A year later, I saw a news article. Eric had been arrested again. Different city, different woman, same pattern. He'd been caught inside her apartment at 3 a.m., standing beside her bed, but this time, she woke up, and when she screamed, he didn't run right away. He stood there for a moment, staring at her, fully awake, fully aware. He wasn't sleepwalking. He never was. He's in prison now, 5 years. But I still think about those videos, about how many times he might have done it before I caught him, about how many nights I slept through it, not knowing he was there. I don't sleep without every door locked anymore. I have a chair wedged under my bedroom door handle. I have cameras in every room. I still wake up sometimes at 4 a.m., heart pounding, feeling like someone's watching, even though I know no one's there. We lock our doors to keep strangers out. But what do you do when the stranger has already been inside, standing over you, and you never even knew? Kindness is supposed to be a good thing. When someone offers to help, we're taught to be grateful, to accept it with a smile. But sometimes, kindness isn't what it seems. Sometimes, it's just the first step in something much darker. I moved into a townhouse in Austin in September 2020. It was my first place alone, and I was excited. The neighborhood was quiet, tree-lined streets, families with kids, the kind of place where people actually said hello. My next-door neighbor, a man named Greg, introduced himself the day I moved in. He was in his late 40s, recently divorced, and friendly in a way that felt genuine. He offered to help carry boxes, lent me a dolly for the heavy furniture, even brought over a 6-pack of beer when we were done. I thought he was just being neighborly. Over the next few weeks, he kept showing up, always with a reason. He'd offer to take my trash cans to the curb on garbage day. He'd ask if I needed help hanging pictures. He'd knock on my door at 8 p.m. to see if I wanted to borrow his lawnmower. At first, I thought it was sweet. He seemed lonely. I felt bad for him. So I'd invite him in sometimes. We'd have coffee, talk about work, normal stuff. He'd mention his ex-wife a lot, how she'd left him out of nowhere, how he didn't understand what he'd done wrong. I listened. I tried to be kind, But then his visits started happening more often. He'd show up unannounced. I'd come home from work and find him in my backyard, trimming hedges I hadn't asked him to touch. He'd knock on my door at 10 p.m., saying he saw my porch light was out and wanted to check if I was okay. It started to feel intrusive. Then I realized he had a key to my house. I don't know how he got it. I never gave him one. But I came home one day and found my spare key hidden under a planter on my porch missing. I changed the locks immediately. When I saw him outside the next day, he asked why. Just wanted to update the hardware, I said, trying to sound casual. He looked hurt. Actually hurt. Like I'd insulted him. I thought we were friends, he said. I didn't know how to respond. I just nodded and went inside. After that, the notes started. They'd be taped to my front door, slipped under my windshield wipers, pushed through the mail slot, always handwritten, always friendly. But the tone was off. Hey, saw you didn't answer when I knocked. Hope everything's okay. Just checking in. You've seemed distant lately. Did I do something wrong? I'm here if you need anything. You don't have to avoid me. I stopped answering my door when he knocked. I started parking in the garage so I wouldn't have to see him in the driveway. I avoided going outside unless I had to. But it didn't stop. One night, I woke up to the sound of someone trying to unlock my front door. I grabbed my phone and called 911. I could hear the key scratching in the lock, the handle jiggling. I stayed on the line with the dispatcher until the police arrived. When they got there, Greg was still on my porch. He had a key in his hand, a copy he'd made from the spare I'd hidden. He told the officers he'd heard a noise and thought someone was breaking into my house. He said he was just trying to help. He genuinely seemed to believe it. The officers told him to go home. They suggested I get a restraining order. I filed for one the next day. It didn't stop the notes. They kept coming. Left on my car at the grocery store, tucked into my mailbox. Once, taped to the inside of my garage door, meaning he'd been inside while I wasn't home. I just want to make sure you're safe. Why are you doing this? I'm only trying to help. You don't have to be afraid of me. I couldn't take it anymore. I broke my lease and moved without telling anyone. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I didn't say goodbye to anyone in the neighborhood. I just packed my things in the middle of the night and left. I still get paranoid when someone's too friendly. When a neighbor waves, I don't wave back. I check my locks 3 times before bed. I don't hide spare keys anymore, because I learned that some people don't understand boundaries, and some people think that caring about you gives them the right to invade your life. Greg never hurt me. He never threatened me, but I'll never feel safe the way I used to, because the worst part wasn't what he did. It was that he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. Kindness should never come with conditions, and help should never feel like control.